First of all, I would like to thank you, graduate scholar, and the president of such an eminent Professor Tapan sir, giving me the platform to speak on such a crucial issue, the Bangladesh crisis, a problem of religion or a nation state. So my objectives are that whenever we talk about or understanding the Bangladesh in contemporary scenario, we are often subscribing to the foreign policy lens, but that's not my point. What I wanted was to what is going on in a domestic politics. We need to focus on that in order to assess the situation. We are seeing around there is an anti-discrimination movement recently launched by the students. What is this movement all about and what is its historical basis? Second is I would be exploring the Eurocentric bias of conflict being pre-modern and constructed by the Orient. इसका ये मतलब है कि कैसे हम जो अ, जब हम इसको प्रॉब्लम को सिचुएशन को समझते हैं कि कैसे हिंदू के खिलाफ एट्रोसिटीज हो रही है तो उसका बेसिस क्या है, क्या स्टेट का इसमें क्या रोल रहा है, क्योंकि हम लोग कई बार प्री एज्यूम करके चलते हैं कि मॉडर्न प्री मॉडर्न एरा से ही वॉर होता आ रहा है और इन कम्युनिटीज में कॉन्फ्लिक्ट हो रहा है। तीसरा मेरा ऑब्जेक्टिव होगा कि कैसे nationalism is an hegemonic and a tool for legitimization. And in the following sections, I would be covering the contradiction of the ideology of the Mujib Rahman, who we call the father of the Bangladesh. How his ideology has a certain contradictions. And after that, we will cover it, nationalization of Islam by via Zia-ur Rahman and Lieutenant Irshad, a military regime. And after that, we will come to the contemporary scenario where how the politics of co-optation and repression was used by Sheikh Hasina. So colonial era. What is the assumption of the colonial era is basically the dichotomy between modernity and tradition. यूजुअली हम लोग समझते हैं कि जो रीजन होता है वो सुप्रीम होता है, जहां हमें अपनी एस्क्रिप्टिव आइडेंटिटीज अपनी रिलीजियस आइडेंटिटीज को छोड़ के सिविल सोसाइटी में डेलिब्रेट करते हैं। इसका ये अर्थ है कि हम अपने रीजन और इमोशंस को के बीच में एक डाइकोटोनमी बना के रखें, जहां इमोशंस हमारे लिए एक हिंड्रेंस होते हैं। इमोशंस हिंड्रेंस होने की वजह से और एक जो कॉलोनियल रूलर्स थे उनकी एक सुपियोरिटी डेवलप हो गई कि हम लोग जो पीपल ऑफ साउथ एशिया आर रिलीजियसली फैनेटिक्स, उन्हें सिर्फ हमारे जो भी कल्चर था उनको वो उस समय नहीं समझ में आया और उनको लगता था कि वी वर वॉयलेंट एंड वी यूज टू वी we cannot be civilized very well. This is reflected in the construction of our Orient identity. I would like to give an example of a northern India. In northern India, when the colonization led to the deindustrialization, the we were when reduced from from a finished product exporter of finished product to the primary goods, and there was a lot of exploitation. People revolted, but how did the British interpret it? British interpreted that in a cultural manner. For example, a Julaha community, a weaver community in an area of United Province was called religiously fanatics. Here, the question was how the Britishers actually wanted to control what is so-called a political sphere. In that, they break the community norms of conflict resolution. This created an episodic of a violence which was described by colonial rulers as communalism. This construction of communalism is so much dominant discourse that it paved the way to the theory of two nations. And here the further question is, we have so many ethnic identities, religion. Do we need for each and everyone we need a separate state? That's a bigger question here. So how? we often see that Bengali nationalism has been a kind of a cultural impetus or for the independence of Bangladesh. But I would like to give an economical imperatives of how Bengali nationalism emerged. Often, often as the Prod Bas suggested, that Urdu being an essential identity of a Muslim has been in the later 19th century. If we if we consider Urdu language, it has been a Hindustani language where the people and where the people would speak Hindustani language. And at the time of Mughal era, Arabic and Persian was the formal language. However, after the Mughals were out of power, British education system was introduced. Hence, in order to accommodate local people, Urdu with the Persian was introduced in the educational system. But some elites wanted to maintain that monopoly. That created a conflict between the Devanagari and Hindi script versus the Urdu. That is how the Urdu became the central question in later phase of 19th century. Why I am telling and emphasizing on particularly Urdu language because this particular symbol later on used by the West Pakistanis and the specifically Punjabi elite who after the partition of India and creation of Pakistan suddenly saw how a certain Bengali language came as a imperative, how it emerged. It was a question mark, but actually they did not want to share power with their fellow East Pakistan. What is East Pakistan nationalism? Concept of nationalism. If we assume that both have a similar and a religious conception, then we are not up to the point. For East Pakistan, the idea of nationalism was more or less regarding free from exploitation, particularly where an ascriptive identity merged with a modern identity to create something called Hindu capitalist. So there, for them, the peasantry class, it was all about getting free from exploitation. And the Muslim League, though it only came, though it presented, tried to present that they are the face of the Muslim, but were not very much grounded or institutionalized party. It was very much kind of a creative, having a very overall superficial structure. So, if we see that the for them West Pakistanis were basically exploitators. The continued legacy, if we see that for Pakistan, India was a threat. So they tried to extract all the resources and spend it in the defense expenditure. And the situation was that East Pakistan was worst off in compared to the West Pakistan. This led to the imperative of Bengali nationalism. बंगाली एक कॉमन लैंग्वेज कल्चर है जिससे वो क्लास कॉन्ट्रडिक्शंस को ओवरकम करके एक लोगों को एक मास मूवमेंट की तरफ क्रिएट हो गया इसलिए हम देखते हैं कि वहां पे मुजीबुर रहमान एक सेपरेट बांग्लादेश नेशन डिक्लेयर कर पाते हैं लेकिन अगर आप देखेंगे तो मुजीबुर रहमान खुद भी नहीं चाहते थे कि उनको कोई अलग से प्रॉपरली एक स्टेट या स्पेशल सेपरेट सोवरेन स्टेट की डिमांड थी अगर हम मुजीबुर रहमान के 4 आइडियाज को देखेंगे सोशलिज्म सेकुलरिज्म डेमोक्रेसी एंड नेशनलिज्म हम यहाँ पाएंगे कि within these ideologies there were contradictions often we subscribe that the Mujibur Rahman had a secular ideology and socialism but later on he on the question of for example Chittagong Hill Tract a region of tribal when the constitution was made the issue of article 6 came where they describe the Bangladeshi identity is equal to Bengali identity, not the tribal of the Chittagong Hill question that we are the Bangladeshi citizen, but we cannot be the Bengali. Hence, we can see it was an ideological tool. Every leader, every leader needs and some kind of a legitimacy, an hegemonic tool to maintain their elite status. So that is the discourse. Nationalism became a hegemonic tool. where Mujibur Rahman at occasions used the religious symbols to distinguish it from uh, uh, religious symbols to distinguish it from the radical left. At the same time, he would also counter he would counter the radical right by using the symbols of socialism. But the system were only confined to few elites. It was based on same earlier patronage system that was working in the colonial era, where British used to vertically mobilize people, not horizontally. वो इंसेंटिव क्रिएट्स करते थे बट फॉर देयर ओन बेनिफिट एंड टू मेंटेन देयर ओन हेजिंग वही सेम कॉलोनियल इंस्टीट्यूट और जो स्टेट था उसने अपना कैरेक्टर नहीं चेंज किया बाद में मुजीबुर रहमान का एक मुजीबिज्म करके एक आइडियोलॉजी है it was more or less personality rather than a coherent ideology. So here we can see the contradictions of Bengali nationalism and the economical imperatives. Now going further, Zia and Irshad regime. Here the comes where the Islam enters a mainstream politics. Zia wanted to legitimize his military rule. So he first of all he replaced that Bengali language with the identity of Bangladeshi. And the Bangladeshi identity was equivalent to Muslim identity. By the he removed the word secularism and and also lifted the ban on rightist parties because when Western Pakistani cracked down on the basis of religious identity and calling those who favor of Awami League as being non-Muslim because they supported Awami League, they there was a kind of uh, there was a kind of disenchantment with the religion. So Zia lifted the ban on the rightist parties like Jamaat-e-Islami, and later on, his same legacy was followed by the Irshad, who declared Islam as a state religion. However, this was also a kind of a hegemonic tool because in 1990, he declared in 1988 due to the crisis where his rule was becoming unpopular. And the very fact was that even only few radical Islamist parties supported that. There was a difference between Zia and Irsad regime, which kind of party, Islamist parties they mobilized. For Zia, it was kind of a modern ulemas, modern Western ulemas who interpreted the Sharia and the laws, while Irshad tried to appeal the Orthodox and Muslim. So this distinction is very important. After he was out of power, in 1991, the parliamentary system was restored. Here we see a few very different phenomena happening in the politics of Bangladesh, where there was a politics of expediency, and second important was the fragmentation of Islamist parties. Third would be the narrow interpretation versus broader interpretation of religion. I would explain. We know that Awami League initially applied to the secular ideals, but later on, how do we distinguish and create and how do we justify on how we are different from the opponent? Zia's Zia's legacy was forwarded by BNP, Bangladesh National Party, and Mujibur Rahman legacy by Sheikh Hasina, who was the only surviving one of the surviving members from her family, who later on had a representative party, Bangladesh Awami League. So here comes a narrow interpretation versus a broader interpretation of it. It refers where the narrow interpretation would call for Islam as a kind of a religion, where the broader interpretation, Islam being a way of life. Where I would describe the broader interpretation that I am a God-fearing people, but I am not a fundamental. It means it tried to provoke a value system that we are not kind of fundamentalists. That was the symbol adopted by the Awami League. However, we would see that that also was kind of a politics of expediency. It was for their own benefit where the ruling elite wanted to come to the power. So, as I mentioned, fragmentation of Islamist party happened where the consensus between the Western scholar-led ulemas and the Orthodox were represented by different parties. At that time, Lieutenant Ishad also created a Jaita party, and basically, Jamaat-e-Islami represented the modern ulemas. So after 1991, when the parliamentary system was restored, the prime minister post was given a very much powerful position. This led to the Bangladesh Awami League to protest against the system. So BNP, in the pressure of Awami League, introduced a caretaken government provision. It implies that there is a non-partisan government led by a chief justice who would, at the times of election, would be allowed to create free and fair election. However, this system was institutionalized in 1996. However, in 2006, it ran into some problem. Suddenly, Bangladesh Awami League did not wanted the present Chief Justice at that time to precede this caretaker government. And the Bangladesh Nationalist Party has certain their own interests. They were both trying to influence election in their own manner. Harry Blair, a prominent scholar, has called this over institutionalization of party system in Bangladesh, जहाँ पे parties एक्स्ट्रा कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल मेजर्स लेती हैं, वो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के विद इन दायरे में नहीं काम करती, और जब भी पार्लियामेंट या इलेक्शन होते हैं वो सामने वालों को एजिटेशन करके इतना वर्किंग करने से रोकते हैं। तो ये इसकी वजह से और लैक ऑफ ट्रस्ट की वजह से पार्टी में कभी कंसेंसस नहीं बन पाया। पार्टी सिस्टम बहुत ही फ्रेगमेंटेड रहा है, पोलराइज रहा है और काफी वॉलेंट रहा है। तो ये आज का नहीं है कि हम ये वॉलेंस देख रहे हैं, ये हमेशा से एक पार्टी सिस्टम का पार्ट रहा। और इसके चक्कर में लैक ऑफ कंसेंसस की वजह से देयर वाज अ मिलिट्री इंटरवेंशन इन 2008। हाउएवर, अगर हम तब भी देखें, केयर टेकर गवर्नमेंट प्रोविजन था, वो 1991 और 2008 और इलेक्शन जब भी हुए हैं उसने मेंटेन किया है कुछ हद तक फ्री एंड फेयर इलेक्शन। However, suddenly things changed in 2011 when Sheikh Hasina, Bangladesh Awami League, removed this CTG provision in 2011, citing the court judgment that it is not a good, it is kind of unconstitutional. However, the court also said that for the two subsequent election, you have to follow these rules. The caretaker government should be there for the two further elections. However, Sheikh Hasina refused to do that. Even the Bangladesh Awami League Parliament Committee suggested that we should go with it. In that thread, 2014, the Bangladesh BNP, Bangladesh Nationalist Party, led by Khalida, threatened to uh, boycott the election with Jamaat-e-Islami. However, it did not affect the election. In 2014, election was held and the interim government was there without any caretaker government provision. 153 candidates got elected unopposed. Even in 2018, almost out of 300, 288 seats were secured by the Bangladesh Awami League, Sheikh Hasina's party. So what is happening here was where the Sheikh Hasina had used the state patronage system, a part of civil and military, to crack down brutally on opponents. It did not matter to her whether it is a religious or not. For example, it cracked down on Jamaat-e-Islami, which we quote as being an Islamist party. But we often miss that when the Jamaat-e-Islami as a major Islamist party got sidelined, there was a movement of Hifazat-e-Islam, which tried to call for, which tried to have some, tried to call for a demand where to remove a lady, a statue of a woman in the form of as a representation of justice. The movement was also against her oppression. However, at that time, after a brutal crackdown on Hifazat-e-Islam main leaders, she co-opted with them. And the Islamist party, Hey Hifazat Islam, also started to work with the ruling government. So here we can see how the politics of expediency is working, where when for their own sake or to maintain their own uh, power, they are ready to use religion as an ideology. And at times they are even ready to discard it if it is against their if it goes against their elite interest. Hence, we that is why we are seeing when suddenly when the Supreme Court ordered the reinstatement of the quota system, we can see a large mass student youth protesting and revolting against the Sheikh Hasina government. Now, here is the contestant: whether we should understand this movement purely based on a student movement or as a religious movement. It would be it will not be both. We have to understand where our aesthetic identity or religious identity get converged with the modern economical imperatives. That is why the whole topic about the nation state or religion is a problem. We ignore the economical imperatives while only relying on cultural interpretation and reductionist argument. कि religion में ही problem है. That is the whole construction. So I would like to end my presentation. If any further question, I'm open to discussion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Pranjal. That was really a well articulated presentation. You break down the whole crisis very well. Uh, we have some questions in the chat box, so let's take them. Just give me a minute. Okay, so we have some questions, so let's take them. So the first question is that what role does international aid play in addressing needs of those affected by the current crisis in Bangladesh, and how is it being distributed?
Okay, when we talk about international aid, uh, first of all, what our comes to mind are NGOs, and right. However, in a Bangladesh, we are seeing a peculiar situation, and it started from early 1990s. Since due to the privatization and due to the privatization, there was almost economical imperative to open the market, and where the NGOs are, we are often said that NGOs are the best kind of collaborators whenever it comes to human rights. But that was not the case in Bangladesh. Bangladesh is seeing a situation where there is a kind of a politicization of NGOs, where the foreign aid is coming, and they sometimes also act like a same state officials based on a patronage system. इसका सिंपली मैं अगर आपको समझाऊं कि कई बार जो एनजीओ से लगातार फंड आ रहा है, अब वो एनजीओ भी कई बार अपने इंटरेस्ट में काम करती है और अपनी मोनोपोली मेंटेन करने के चक्कर में कई बार वो भी एक स्टेट ऑफिशियल की तरह एक्ट करती है। और एक और प्रॉब्लम हो रही है इंटरनेशनल एड से, जो है कि स्टेट अपनी लेजिटिमेसी ही नहीं बना पा रहा है, क्योंकि एनजीओ से वो ऑलरेडी कंप्लीट करना पड़ रहा है। एनजीओ से अच्छा खासा फंड आता है बांग्लादेश में, ये आज की बात नहीं, ये 1990 से चल रहा है। और लेकिन अब एनजीओ भी पोलिटिसाइज हो चुके हैं वहां के, और वहां पे जो इस्लामिस्ट जो डोनर्स है वहां से वो कन्वर्ट हो गए हैं। तो हम ये कहना ये भी मुश्किल हो गया है वहां पे कि जो हम पैसा दे रहे हैं इंटरनेशनल एड में, वो वहां तक लोगों तक पहुंच रहा है कि नहीं पहुंच रहा है, तो वहां पे भी वो कंडीशंस पे पहुंच रहा
Okay, so let's take the next question. So the next question is that the whole of South Asia seems in grip of communal problems. State as well as international efforts seems to have no impact. What, according to you, can be a positive step in this regard?
Okay, so basically, yes, you are right that the communalism is a basic problem. If we see that it is a problem in the South Asian region, but we need to understand how from where it is coming from. We need to understand first of all, it is not pre-modern. It is a modern and it is due to the colonial state. What is the inherent nature of that colonial state? If we analyze, it is mainly being centralist in nature. Second aspect is monolithic identity. Our obsession to create a monolithic identity of a nation, whether it is a Sri Lanka or whether it is a Bangladesh, an obsession where only a single, there would be only a single religious identity or any single uh, basically identity. It we did not want to accommodate other identity. For example, uh, Al Khawaz, a prominent scholar uh, who worked on Pakistan, interviewed the military of Pakistan after the Bangladesh war, where the elite suggested that the soldiers were not Islamic enough and they are too innocent to understand the Hindu India, that they were cunning. And the problem is that the population of Pakistan is not Islamic in nature. We all understand Pakistan as being a religiously declared Islam state. Yet their their elites try to proclaim and the military that the people are not Islamic enough. So the problem is we're trying to create this monolithic identity. We need to acknowledge that the provincialism, we have to out to give power, we have to give representation. And secondly, we need to acknowledge that a nation can be created based on multiple identities.
Okay, okay, Mr. Pranjal, those were very well answers. Now, last question, which we asked to almost all our speakers. Although, because of some sudden reasons, we had to do some shifts into our further programs, and we connected with you a little late, but still, what was your experience with this initiative, and how was your experience with the tree meet, and so what you want to say about this initiative, Mr. Pranjal?
Okay, the best thing I liked about this platform was that it gave an opportunity like a postgraduate student who have just started studying things in detail, a platform to convey things in a very articulated manner. And what I find is in today's discourse is that the information or the discourse are present, alternative discourse are present, but they are not reaching the to the masses properly. So this platform help us in kind of uh, helping giving us a platform where we can articulate different discourses, where we can problematize the single coherent discourse that is dominant in the society. Whether we open social media, we are all seeing a similar kind of a dominant discourse where the religious identity is being incompatible, or at extreme, we are seeing that the reducing the concept of secularism as something complete alien to our state, which is also not a fact. Hence, as a platform, it is a uh, very well work where it describes and gives an opportunity where we can discuss various alternative programs where we can talk about solution. Thank you.
Okay, and you must have gone through a pre-meet, I guess.
Hmm.
So what was your experience with that pre-meet? Something you want to highlight to the rest of the audiences or the speakers who want to connect in future? So something you would like to share with us, the experience from your field.
Can you, from experience from your what?
Pre-meet, like
Okay,
the
pre-meet.
meet.
Okay, okay, yeah, sure. Actually, I would like to thank Manish sir for his valuable input because when I was presenting first time, I was kind of getting too much narrow and using kind of a political science jargon, which is very problematic in nature because if we confine our language, even now, I'm not very well articulating in the bilingual, which I acknowledge that I need to work upon, but we need to simplify the political jargon. Otherwise, what we are studying, what we are researching will always be in the confined to books only. That is a very important thing Manish had gave insight on.
Okay.
Pranjal, can I put a question to you as well?
Yes, sir.
Small question.
Yes, sir.
How do you look forward to? I mean, in Bangladesh,
Hmm.
what you were expecting things to show up, like
Hmm.
ultimately leading to?
Okay. I have seen one a particular variable that in Bangladesh, students have always played a very prominent role there, whether it was a Bengali nationalism or in current now also we are seeing an anti-discrimination movement going on. But the problem is that they want to discard the constitution itself end of the 1972. They recognize that the system has a fascist tendency. They recognize that these there are political elites working in there, but sometimes they are tending to work in a very binary position where they don't want to acknowledge the Mujibur Rahman. They don't want to. That is because it's like a blind spot from the Bengali nationalism, very blind spot.
Do you think it's going to be anarchic in nature for a while?
Uh, no, sir, I would certainly disagree for that it would be very much anarchic because as I pointed that if we see the tendency of how the party system are working, it has been a certainly in working around 1990s, despite we are seeing economical growth and all. Uh, I think the situation would get something better in around 1 or 2 years at max.
Do you think that democratic setup which should be worked out right now would
Hmm.
solve the problem or would further worsen it?
Uh, okay, for that, is in when the Bangladesh Awami League has passed the 16th Amendment, which gave all the power of impeaching the judiciary to the legislature. But we saw that that was declared previously as being unconstitutional. Constitutionally, if we see that uh, legal methods are not very much reliable, what I would say. Obviously, we need some minority representation in the form of reservation and some autonomy, but that would not be enough. Since I have said that NGOs have also been politicized, we need some kind of a cultural impetus also. For that, that is why this concept of broader interpretation of religion, what constitute the Muslimness, what do we mean by religion? Because the scholarly work have tendency to analyze the religion only and the state vis-a-vis church and the state relationship. But we often have ignored the conception of religion as a value system, where it tends, as a value system, it tends to curb the politician from acting out of, to curb the characters of politicians to acting out of the way and creating violence. So that is why what I think we need to focus on contesting the using the same symbols and contesting the very idea of what being religion is, what is religion is.
Do you think that there would be a kind of a renaissance in Southeast Asia and Southeast Asia? Renaissance kind of movement which happened in Europe. That kind of movement might take place in South Asia. I mean, keeping in view that far right, far left, or whatever is emerging, which negates the basic principles of democracy. Actually, would that be
Uh,
possible?
hmm.
Do you see that possibility?
Yes, sir. I think I see the possibility, but because we need to, we are kind of recognizing and paying way towards, first of all, for example, in India, I would say, example that we know how social media led to a kind of a polarization, but now we are seeing an interesting discourse also, where we are often, whenever someone present an information, we are tend to have argument like whether from where you are talking about, whether it's from WhatsApp university or what. So whether we see that the current polarization with the increasing technology, the communication is increasing. And one of the basic principle of Habermas was that the more the communication and deliberation happen in a public discourse, this is where we sort out things. So as an intellectual, we have also have to take effort where we trying to contest the idea of religion, contest the idea of symbol. So if we pave the way, we can see the Renaissance like European countries, provided we will also means we have also learned from their Renaissance. I think we have a certain advantage in that concept. We learned what we have to not do. We know certain things that Renaissance how itself has created a problem.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much, Pranjal. That was a really good Q&A session and conversation as well with our today's guest of honor. Now, proceeding the session further, I would like to invite Professor Tapan Biswal sir once again for putting his insights over today's session and over today's topic. Please, sir.
Thank you so much, everybody, joining the 201st GSTS talk. And thanks, Pranjal, for unfolding the social configuration of Bangladesh. Unless and until you understand the social configuration of a particular country, it will be too difficult to understand it. How things are. And many times in your also talk, you talked about history repeating itself. That side, this side, that side, this side. That is happening in quite 10 years duration. In a decade, it is changing,
Mm.
right?
Yes.
So it's still a volatile kind of situation. I'll not say that we are progressing to a kind of uh, stable state system, but we are still in a volatile system, volatile state. I think it will take time to stabilize. And army playing a very major role there. As in Pakistan, as in other neighboring states, you find when army becomes a, I mean, deciding factor or the political adjudicator actually,
Mm.
then it becomes a problem. And in all our social situations in all the South Asian countries, the institutions are very weak. Be it election commission, be it Supreme Court, be any other institution, is very weak. And primarily they toe the government. Right? So that immaturity or lack of political ideology or lack of political beliefs will be there, and we will have to factor it in our analysis of things. At the same time, which we had thought of that economic progress will be subduing the cultural political division is not working. It's not working. As it happened in West,
Mm.
development suppressed the complexities in social society,
Hmm.
So that is not happening unfortunately, in Asia. So we'll have to be very careful as political science students, teachers, and researchers to focus as to how intrinsically embedded in our mindset religion too preoccupied in our mind. Touching
Hmm.
religion is touching a kind of ballistic missiles, right? So
Yes, sir.
that kind of situation would be there. How to separate religion from politics would be $1 million question, which Renas have tried to answer. Right?
Uh,
So my view on Bangladesh would be uh, still. I mean, you see, you cannot outrightly reject the foreign intervention. And if you look at the encirclement of India, it is China is encircling India and expanding its interest or expanding its influence. You have seen it in Sri Lanka, you have seen it in Maldives, you have seen it in Nepal, you have seen it in Burma. And Bangladesh is a curious kind of situation. There you find the intervention of United States of America. Probably that is a kind of small consolation for us as a neighbor. I cannot be at peace if Pranjal is at trouble, right? So we'll have to factor those kind of things. How national politics is influenced by international intervention. That will have to factor it out. Factor it out. Probably what the present dispensation is trying to do is trying to calming down the euphoria that has taken place as the anti-Hasina movement. Once that euphoria dies down or cools down, probably good sense will prevail. And I hope the elections, which is expected to be taking place in sometimes in December 25 or middle of 26, it's a kind of a very balanced kind of situation. It is not a kind of euphoric. What happened in the spring movement in Egypt? The the dispensation were removed, and you find the chaotic kind of situation. So I think I'll appreciate this present dispensation or even the military intervention there, military working as a watchdog, looking over the things. And today we have a very big article in Hindu about the military chip there. Now he is trying to water down the or mellow down the euphoria. Let's wait for a while and we'll see as to how it is happening. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for all your eminent insights and ideas. And thank you so much for joining us in this beautiful intellectual evening. Now, proceeding further, I would like to invite our to-be speaker for next Sunday, Ms. Shrishti, and she will be delivering her talk on the topic cultural, historical, and spiritual significance of Kumbh Mela on next Sunday. I would like to invite her to present her objectives. So, Ms. Shrishti, kindly present your objectives for your talk on next Sunday.
A very good evening to everyone. I am Srishti Rana and currently I am studying for my bachelor's degree in ancient Indian history, culture and archaeology at Banaras Hindu University. I have always been fascinated by cultural and spiritual events that bring people together, crossing barriers of caste and religion and region. This interest has inspired the topic I will speak on next week, the cultural, historical, and spiritual importance of the Kumbh Mela. कुंभ पुण्य क्षेत्र नाम महोत्सव श्रेयसे सर्व जना नाम. During my talk, I will explore the following key points: the multifaceted significance of Kumbh Mela. Beyond being a grand fair, it is a spiritual and cultural confluence that has deep historical roots, representation of Indian identity, how the Kumbh symbolizes the essence of Indian culture, spirituality, and social unity, while also highlighting its economic impact. A global stage, the role of Kumbh in showcasing India's spiritual and cultural diversity to the world, economic and social benefits, its contribution to job creation, tourism, and economic progress, making it a boon for local and national economies. Challenges and environmental concerns. The logistical difficulties in managing such a massive gathering and its impact on the environment, along with potential solutions. The Kumbh is a beautiful example of India's rich heritage and spiritual depth. It is a unique gathering of faith, devotion, and unity. I am looking forward to share this meaningful insight with all of you next Sunday. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Shrishti, and we would surely join your session on next Sunday. Now with this, we have come to the end of the session, and now I would like to hand over the moderation to Dr. Manish Sharma. Thank you so much, everyone.
Yeah, thank you, Salins. Thank you. Though it's a very slow, very articulated and deep-rooted start for the 201. For this Pranjal, it was really very interesting topic and how Pranjal moves forward and interaction, such kind of interaction, just like a PhD Viva. And sir is the head of department of so many universities. So just like Pranjal is doing uh, a PhD Viva. So wonderful, Pranjal. You started slow. Bit by bit, you have developed your whole idea about the Bangladesh, and sir's interference gives us a wonderful depiction. Those who are from political science, because I'm seeing few of my students also here. They are very a good researcher. If they listen word by word about your ideas and the sir's interpretations, they would get really wonderful idea about what's going in Bangladesh. And for the today's Times of India, sir just mentioned about the Hindu newspaper. So today's the Times of India newspaper, because from 2 or 3 days I'm very fond about the Times of India, because the GSTS 200 they published one article about the GSTS. So Dipankar Gupta's one article, and that article is very fascinating because in India and everywhere South Asia we are very fond about the language, and the language gives us a very a kind of narrative, and all we are the social scientists, so we know about India also 1956, and this all era the language problem. And do you know in the Israel, Hebrew was not a versatile language for the Israel. They learn Hebrew to unite their country. Likewise, France, when the France got become a nation around 1789 or 190, in between 199, only 20% people know French. And now you look what's the idea. Even this the Italian about the Eric Hobsbawm, only 2% people, while Italy got unified, and after that only 2% people spoke one language, and now they are speak Italian. So this is the fragmentation, and this is the idea of the we also inculcate for the South in the South Asia also. Every time we quarrel about the language, and Pranjal depict a very interesting idea in the first part of his presentations. Because I'm not the expert of the Bangladesh, but one young scholar and one learned scholar, and every time Tapan sir listening you, it's a really very like intrigued me, and it's very fascinating. And China is everywhere. Yes, today itself I'm reviewing an article. Indo-Pacific China was there, Bangladesh China is there, in Africa China is there. So whether we are monitoring China or whatsoever, we'll discuss in another lecture somehow how China is doing each and everything. Once upon a time, America is doing the each and everything. In this perspective, I'm thankful to Pranjal and little bit about the Pranjal and sir, because we are very skeptical about the 201, because usually we took a break during one incident to 100 to 101 and 200 to 201. But university exams are going on, so we are going to celebrate festival of some kind of festival or some kind of conference in after 26th of January. So sudden Friday night we assumed that okay, now we are going to do 201. One of my student Deo, I rang up Deo, and Deo gives me Pranjal number, and suddenly I Saturday morning I rang up Tapan sir, and thank you all too and my moderators that we are here and we are doing 201. So thank you, sir, and thank you, Pranjal, for giving us this wonderful beginning and